Just like we created generic function for updating timeline item objects in the previous lesson, in this lesson we're gonna do the same thing but for another resource, activities objects. So currently we only have one function which updates activities objects, and that is set activity seconds to complete, which is called in here. Let's take a look at the definition of this function. And since this function manages activities resource, it is defined inside activities module. So in this module, besides this function, we also see functions responsible for creating new activities as well as deleting activities. So we're gonna create the function with a name update activity, which is of course going to accept activity object we're about to update, and another object with overridden properties. Let's call this object fields, just like we have done with update timeline item function. By the way, we can just copy over implementation of this function and paste this line into our function update activities. The logic will be pretty much the same. We just have to rename the first parameter we're passing in here on activity. And that's all what's required to update activity object. And now let's go back to that component where we are using set activity seconds to complete function and replace this function call onUpdateActivity function. But of course, along with this, we also have to tweak second parameter a bit, because now it accepts an object with properties we are about to override. And in this particular case, we are overriding property called seconds to complete. So let's specify this property in the form of an object like this. But that's not all, because if we take a look at the implementation of set activity seconds to complete function, here we can see that we are also using fallback to 0 in the case when second to complete property will be falsy. So we also have to maintain this behavior with our new function update activity. So let's just move this fallback part and actually paste it in here where we are constructing new object of overridden fields like this. And in case event variable will be falsy, we're gonna fall back to 0, and 0 will be assigned to seconds to complete property of activity object. And at this point, the only thing left to do is actually replace set activity seconds to complete function on update activity like this. And in the browser, let's see if our new function actually works. Let's watch seconds to complete property of activity object. And when I try to set up the time for this activity, and we're supposed to see that that property will actually get updated with a new selected time. And indeed, it is working. Every time we're gonna select new time, this property will receive new time in seconds. So let's just go back to the editor one more time and finally remove that old unused function set activity seconds to complete from activities module. And on this, we're finishing this lesson. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.